going to present a seminar for the next 5 nights called Srila Prabhupada, the Living Bhagavatam. I actually presented some of it last year when I was here in Sydney. Was anybody here last year? 1 or 2. Okay. Can you remember what topic we did?
Chanting.
Was it chanting? Okay.
That was one of them.
What we have is a few different topics, items of devotional service. I've been working on presenting a diary that I kept whilst I was travelling with Srila Prabhupada from late 1975 through till March of 1977. So during that period I was keeping a daily diary of who Prabhupada was meeting, what he was saying, where we were going, all the different events that were taking place. And over the last 15 or 20 years I've been gradually releasing the... Where's Rupa?
Yeah.
Why don't you stand a couple up so that people can see the covers. I have 5 volumes of that diary that have been published so far, because this is an expanded version of the original diary. Originally my handwritten notes were just notes, but what I did was I went back and expanded the original notes. I also was recording Srila Prabhupada on cassette tape, so I've added that in, or summaries of those recordings, morning walks, lectures, meetings that Prabhupada had, different conversations, etc. And I've also included in this all of Prabhupada's correspondence. That means the letters that were written to him and Prabhupada's replies. So from that you get a daily picture of how Srila Prabhupada was living as a devotee, how he was 24 hours a day engaged in Krishna consciousness. And from this material, then what I've done is I've taken out different topics like cleanliness, chanting, health, book writing, temples and deities, like that. There's about 7 or 8 different topics. And I've compiled them, tried to put them into some kind of order so that it gives a more focused look at that particular topic of devotional life. And you see how Srila Prabhupada himself was applying the philosophy in very, very practical situations. And of course sometimes those situations were not necessarily very favourable. Some difficulty may have arisen and then Prabhupada had to deal with it. So it's real life. It just takes us into the mind of a pure devotee in some respects. So I called this seminar Prabhupada the Living Bhagavatam. There was a reason for that, which if you just bear with me a second. Okay. There were a couple of occasions when Prabhupada mentioned this principle of the living Bhagavatam. Let me just get this up. And it was one of the first observations actually that I made when I joined Prabhupada's party. I'll give you a little bit of background. Just to start with, I had joined here in Sydney in 1972. I met the devotees actually. I just arrived as an immigrant in 1971, and I met the devotees on the street in, I think, George Street. The second day that I was here, I got a Back to Godhead magazine, and then I went up into the north, in northwest Australia for about 6 months, working, just trying to get some money. I was a young man, 20 years old. I'd come with 3 friends. We met some other friends on the boat, and we all headed off up into the north there. So whilst we were up there, it was a nice environment in the sense that we were well away from everywhere else, all the distractions of city life, and working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and saving some money. And I took the opportunity to, pursue this idea of spiritual life. I wasn't exactly sure what I was after at that point, but I got this magazine. I was interested in yoga, and when I started to read the Back to Godhead and Prabhupada's articles and the articles of the devotees, then gradually things started to fall into place, started to make a little sense to me. I was, desperately looking for some answers. I was trying to figure out what life was, why I was here, what death was, and all these kinds of questions. So eventually I left the north, I came back here to Sydney to find the devotees, and I ended up joining the temple in February of 1972. I actually shaved my head on St. Valentine's Day. So I was here in Australia serving for about 3 years. I went to India in 1975 for the first time. We went to Mayapur and we went to the Vrindavan temple opening in 1975. We also went to a pandal in Hyderabad as well. Anybody from the south? Where?
Madras.
Madras, sorry. Yes, we're just building a nice temple actually. So then when I came back to Australia, I was a bit unsettled. I liked India, and I was a bit unsettled here, so I decided to pack my bags and move to India, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because once I arrived there, then from that time on, I started getting lots of association with Srila Prabhupada. So up until that time, we used to see Prabhupada once a year. He would come here to Australia for 1 week, and that was it, you know, and then he would go off on his travels. So we'd see Prabhupada 1 week a year, but that was enough. Seeing that, you know, that short period, that was enough to keep us going, keep our enthusiasm up, and, you know, inspire us for the rest of the year in our preaching work. Then when I went to India, all of a sudden Prabhupada became a lot more accessible. Here in the Western temples, because they were a little bit more developed in those days than we were in India, and Prabhupada was less involved in the daily functions. He would lecture in the morning, he would go out on his walk, and that was all that we saw of him. But in India, Prabhupada was very much involved, you know, in the whole development of all the temples there. Most of his disciples at that time were from the West. We didn't have a clue what was going on, how things worked, you know. So Prabhupada had to do everything, practically. He was directing everything, and so he was a lot more accessible. And we found that, you know, we could go into his room, not any time, but, you know, he would have open darshans. People would come in, you could sit for a couple of hours and hear him speak like this. It was just very nice being in India with Prabhupada. And then towards the end of the year, I found myself in Delhi, and Prabhupada had just come back from a tour to South Africa and Mauritius and Kenya. And when he arrived back, he came from Bombay up to Delhi. This was in late November of 75. And somehow or another, he didn't have a personal assistant. He used to travel with a secretary and with a servant. So the secretary would arrange for, you know, the travel schedules. He would arrange, you know, do all Prabhupada's mail, and he would arrange for all meetings and things like this. And then the servant was there to look after Prabhupada's personal needs. So Prabhupada used to have 2 massages a day, one at midday for an hour and a half, and then one in the night time for about half an hour or 1 hour. And then, of course, you know, there was all the cooking and these kinds of things to take care of. So that was the servant's duties. So anyway, somehow or another, Prabhupada came to Delhi and he didn't have a servant. And I just happened to be there for 1 day on some personal business. And I won't go into all the details of it, but somehow or another, Prabhupada saw me there, and I was asked if I would massage him. And I was only supposed to do it for a couple of days. And then from there, that couple of days became a couple of weeks, and then it ended up being about 1.5 years. So, by some unusually, you know, good fortune, I got to travel with Prabhupada quite extensively. I was with him on his last world tour, and I spent about 1 year with him in India also. So all of those experiences that we had, then I tried to record down. I was keeping a diary at the time, and my intention was always that I'd try to share that experience of being with Prabhupada, try to convey that to other devotees, what it was actually like to be with a pure devotee, how he was living his life. So one of the first observations, one of the first realizations that I got when I joined Prabhupada's party was just after we'd been in Delhi for a couple of days, we went to Kurukshetra for one day, and then on December the 2nd, Prabhupada came to Vrindavan, and it was at that point that I was put on his party as a full-time servant. In Delhi I was just giving massages, but then when we got to Vrindavan, then he asked me to move into his quarters and be his full-time servant. So that first day that we were there in Vrindavan, I was sitting in his room. Prabhupada was giving the darshan, and I had a very striking realization just about his whole character. And I recorded that down, so I'm going to read a little bit of that. And what I'll do is during the seminar, I'll talk a little bit, I'll read a little bit. If anybody has any questions, that you want to ask, feel free. We can stop and make sure everybody understands everything. So that way, then we'll try and keep it a bit lively. So anyway, this was on December the 2nd, 1975, and as I say, I was there in Prabhupada's room with him. So it's extremely pleasurable to be with Prabhupada during these quiet moments. He is gentle and mild in his manner, and completely fixed and steady in his devotion to Krishna. He has tremendous strength and force, but is devoid of passion. His presence is totally dominating, without being at all domineering. His mind is steady, and his senses are controlled effortlessly. His intelligence is perfectly clear, and he knows how to act and how others should act in every situation. His presence thus makes spiritual life a reality. Watching him today, it struck me that he is a living, breathing Bhagavatam. Whatever description of Krishna consciousness is there in his books, he himself is that. Reading his books brings gradual realization, but what is understood in perhaps several lifetimes of study is revealed on a second-to-second, minute-to-minute, and day-to-day basis in Prabhupada's personal association. I am therefore resolved within myself to learn as much as I can while I have this matchless opportunity to observe him closely. Simply watching Prabhupada in his daily activities, how he deals with devotees, how he responds to the different situations, how he preaches, how he continually pushes forward the movement of Lord Chaitanya, how absolutely every facet of his being is fully Krishna conscious, then it is quite feasible to understand the full import of the sacred scriptures. By studying and preaching, one may make steady advancement. But at least for me, although I have full faith in Krishna consciousness, many ideas and principles are still only intellectually perceived, but not yet fully realized. But by observing Srila Prabhupada, I can see how they are a natural, integral part of his very being. So that was, I think, my first really clear realization that I got from being in close quarters with Prabhupada, that he was just a living, breathing Bhagavatam. You read Prabhupada's books, there's volumes and volumes and volumes, and all of Prabhupada's purports, and there's just so much knowledge there. There's so much to understand. As I say, it takes lifetimes to understand it. But there it all was, in an instant, in Srila Prabhupada's character. So I just got this realization, if I just observe Prabhupada and everything that he does, then I'll understand immediately what Krishna consciousness is. It won't be theoretical anymore. So that was one realization that I had about this principle of the living Bhagavatam. And then Prabhupada himself spoke about this principle later on when we were on the world tour. We had arrived in France in early August of 1976. So I've been with Prabhupada about 7 months by that time. And the devotees had brought various personalities to come and meet with him and talk. One of them was a professor, Professor Francois Chenique, and he had written a very favorable review of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, Tel Calais, the French version. And so he was very interested to come and meet with Srila Prabhupada. He was also a very pious kind of person. When he came into the room, he was wearing a dhoti, and he had beads around his neck, and he had tilak on. So it was very nice, just, out of respect. He himself considered himself to be more of a Buddhist, he said, than a devotee. But Prabhupada said, no, you're a devotee. And he complimented him. He was very humble. Not, sometimes we get the impression about scholars that they're full of themselves. They know more than everybody else. This man wasn't like that. He was very, very nice. Very honored to meet with Srila Prabhupada, and they had a wonderful discussion. So these preliminary introductions done, Professor Shenik said that he was keen to see Prabhupada's Bhagavatam come into use. Now he wanted to see Prabhupada's books introduced into the university system in France. So he said that there is only one other French translation of the Bhagavatam, which had been done in the 1800s, and that had no commentary. Yet, he said, at the university level, the French are meticulous about maintaining the grammatical standards of their language. He was politely concerned that our translations should not smell of English, as he put it. Because the French have a paranoia about, the English language invading the purity of their language. So he was trying to be very polite. He said, your translation should not smell of English. So he felt that since our books are translated directly from English, the French literary expression is not always exactly correct. Describing French as a more compact language than English, he wondered whether it might not be better to translate directly from the Sanskrit into French. Prabhupada was not very concerned, while acknowledging that if possible improvements could be made to future editions. He explained that as yet no French devotee had become a Sanskritist. And besides that, he said, it's not a question of scholarship. The translator must be a realized soul. He said that although there are many Sanskrit scholars in India, they cannot understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. He must be French, expert in language, at the same time a devotee, Prabhupada said. Then he can explain. Otherwise, no. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's secretary, Swarup Damodar, he asked that Bhagavat Padagiya Bhagavat Stane, you go and study the Bhagavat from the Bhagavat. So I have discussed this in the beginning of the translation of my Bhagavat. So the Bhagavat, that is the limit of education. Vidya Bhagavata Vadi. One has to study and take education up to the Bhagavatam. That is, that if one understands the Bhagavatam, then his education is finished. The professor assured Prabhupada that he wasn't in any way criticizing, but he was concerned that Prabhupada would get the widest possible audience. He felt that an improvement in the way that the French editions were written would ensure that. And Prabhupada appreciated his concern, but he continued to stress his point. That is from the scholarship point of view, he said. But our point is that this Bhagavat must be presented by Bhagavat. And there is not much scholarship required. Just like the Bhagavat begins with the words Janmadhyasya Jita. So this Sanskrit word means that the absolute truth is that from where everything emanates. Now, that absolute truth is further explained. Anvaya Taratascha Abhigya Svarat. The absolute truth is aware of everything, directly and indirectly, of all of this creation. So in this way, if you step-by-step study, it is not very difficult as far as the word meanings are concerned, but it is a question of realization. Unless one is realized, he cannot explain properly. This is the secret. Therefore, we have given the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the beginning of our Bhagavatam because he is the living Bhagavatam. So that was a nice expression Prabhupada used that Lord Chaitanya, he was of course preaching from the Bhagavatam, but because he was living the Bhagavatam, he is the living Bhagavatam, therefore it was potent. And of course we see that that's why Prabhupada was so successful when he came out from India and began his preaching work in 10 short years. What he achieved, because he was actually living, the life of a pure devotee. He understood what the texts were about, and he presented them in the proper way, so they had an immediate effect. So anyway, this is what we're aiming for, is to try to present Srila Prabhupada, the living Bhagavatam. Now, I have different topics. and I'm going to let you all choose which one we talk about. We can either do a different topic every night, or we can do one topic until we exhaust that one, and then we'll move on to another one. Some of the topics are longer. I sometimes take 5 or 6 sessions to finish one topic. Chanting is a long one, of course, but we did that last year, chanting. Anyway, what we've got, and you can pick what you like. We've got book writing. That's a look at Prabhupada's writing of his Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, etc. What inspired him, the work and effort that he put into that. It's a nice inside look. Because of course as servants, secretaries, in the night time when we were all ready for bed, we'd go to bed at maybe 11 o'clock. At least I would, as Prabhupada's servant, because I had to massage him at night. And then, go and take rest at 11 or 11:30. Prabhupada would be up within half an hour. And then he would be up all night for the rest of the night translating the Bhagavatam. And then at 4 o'clock, 4:30, when we were just heading up for Mangalati, Prabhupada would then stop his translation work. And he used to sleep probably 3 to 4 hours maximum every day. 1 hour after breakfast, 1 hour after lunch, and an hour or an hour and a half in the evening time. And then the rest of the time he was, translating, preaching, like this. So, book writing is very interesting. Some very revealing things in that one. Chanting, of course, the whole movement's based on chanting. So that's in different segments of japa and kirtan. And then we have cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. We've got one on deities and temples, construction of temples, things like this, and things that Prabhupada said about different deities around the world, pastimes that he had with different deities. There's health, which is a topic that most of his old folks, like to talk about. The older you get, the more you talk about it. So health, how Prabhupada dealt with his, failing health. Because we all know that when Prabhupada came up, he set off on the boat. He was nearly 70 years old, and he had a massive heart attack on the boat. That was even before he got started. And then what to speak about all the problems that came up, during the following 10 years. So, Prabhupada had his own philosophy about how to deal with ill health, and he also instructed his disciples also quite extensively about how they should look after their health. So that's another topic. Another topic is living in the Dham, living in Vrindavan mainly, and Mayapur also. How to live in a spiritual place, what the requirements are there to be successful. Then there's prasadam. We all know prasadam. And that, of course, Prabhupada said his whole movement was based on prasadam. Two things, chanting and prasadam. Everything else was developed from that. So there's a lot of stuff on prasadam. And I think that's about it. I've got a few other little ones there, but they're the main topics for the moment. So let me read through them again, and we'll take a vote. So when you get to your topic, you can put your hand up, and we'll see who the majority want to hear about. So we've got book writing. Prabhupada's writing of his books. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who's going to keep count? You can keep count. All right, 4 on that one. We've got chanting. We did do chanting last year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, because it's always worth hearing again. 7. Oh, did you just put your hand up twice? All right. There's cleanliness. You can't put your hand up for everything. That would pick one topic. Yeah? 1, 2? No. 2. All right. Deities and temples. 1, 2, 3, 4. Health. 3, 5, 6, 7, living in the Dham. Living in Vrindavan. 1, 2, 3. Hey, come on, you just put your hand up on. And then prasadam. Okay, well, who won that one? I think we got down to health and chanting. Alright, so let's do a runoff now. All those in favour of chanting. 6, 7, 8. All those in favour of health. Okay, the health freaks in. Okay. Alright, health it is. I haven't done this one for quite a while actually. So normally I talk about books and chanting, that's the most popular stuff. And prasadam. So this one will do health. Alright, so we'll look at Prabhupada's personal health first. Because when you really understand all the problems that Prabhupada had, it makes what he did all the more glorious. Sometimes people wonder, why did Krishna wait, until Prabhupada was old before he sent him to the West? But of course that just glorifies, the effort even more when it's done in adversity. And there was a lot of personal adversity that Prabhupada had to face. It's not like, he displayed a tremendous amount of energy just, in his daily schedule, in his traveling, just the vigor that he had. But that belied the actual situation with his body. He had many, many different problems. So we'll deal with those as we go along. But we'll have a look at Prabhupada's philosophy on his own health. I'm not saying everybody's health, but the way that he dealt with his own health. So this was February 26, 1977. Prabhupada was in Mayapur. So this evening he was sitting on his asana with the lights very low out on the veranda. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Pradyumna and myself were present with him. I gave him some medicine that he was taking for his kidney, and he pulled a face because it was busy. He laughed then and he told us that as a child it took 3 men to hold him down when he had to be given medicine. Sometimes when I was angry, he said I would take these hookahs and I would smash them on the ground. Trivikram Maharaj, who had just come by, asked whether his mother had tried to stop him. So he grinned and he said, yes, then I would take another one and break that too. So apparently in his home they had these hookahs. I don't think his father smoked them, but maybe. Anyway, he didn't like taking medicine even as a child. Nothing unusual in that, I don't think. But August the 15th, 1976, Prabhupada was in Bombay, and we just arrived back from the last leg of that last world tour. We had been in Tehran for about a week in Iran. In those days, of course, the Shah of Iran was in charge. Westerners could still go in and out. We had a few devotees there. Traya Rishi Prabhu was there. He was actually from Iran, but he was, I'm not sure whether he was a Baha'i or a Zoroastrian or something, but he wasn't a Muslim. But he was from Iran. So he had joined in New York and then gone back there. He was one of the chief men in the Arthur Young accountancy firm. So he set up a branch of Arthur Young in Iran, in Tehran, just so that he could go and preach there. He supported himself from running the business, and then in the evenings they would go and meet people. Dayananda was there with his wife Nandarani and their children. He was working for IBM in the day, and again they were preaching in the night time. His wife was running a school for the local Indian children, Hindu children. There was still some Hindus there at that time. And then there was Paribrajacharya Swami. And he was doing some amazing stuff. He actually was teaching Hatha Yoga to the daughter of the Shah of Iran. And he was the first Westerner to ever be allowed into the inner chambers of the Shah of Iran's palace. Nobody had ever been in there before. And he used to go there 2 or 3 times a week and teach them yoga. And from him then, of course, all the other family members, they heard about what we were doing, and they were very favourable, actually. They even, when they went on tour in 1977 they visited our Los Angeles temple. This was the royal family. Not the Shah, but some of the other ones. And actually I think this picture of Krishna sitting there with a butterfly, Makancho, the original picture of that, done by the BBT artist, was given to the Shah of Iran's daughter. And she took it back and they had it hanging in the palace. Of course, not long after that, then the revolution came and everything was finished. But anyway, at that time it was quite amazing what they were doing there. There were a couple of other devotees. So we'd been in Iran. Prabhupada, whilst he was there, because of the high altitude, he got this recurring problem. He had bad kidneys. And that would cause this condition called uremia. So his hands and feet would swell up from excess fluid in his body. Because when the kidneys don't work properly, they don't eliminate the uric acid. And it's very, very painful. One doctor thought Prabhupada had a kidney stone. Another doctor told him that his kidney had actually failed. And the other kidney was not working very well. But, Prabhupada just continued on as if nothing was happening practically. Because sometimes he had to make a few adjustments and it would cause him problems. He had very, very high blood pressure also. So sometimes when this uremia condition was extreme, then he wouldn't be able to go on his morning walks. And it would cause him a little problems. And sometimes there were a couple of occasions, as we'll read later, when Prabhupada actually called me into his room at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just to tell me that he couldn't work because his kidneys were hurting him so much. Has anybody here ever had kidney problems? Nobody. You're lucky. I have a godbrother, Sadadanya, and he used to live in Calcutta, so he had a kidney stone one time. And they rushed him off to the hospital. And then after a few days he came back out. So I asked him, how did it go? He said, well, they put me in the hospital. They put me in a special ward, he said, which is just for kidney patients. So I said, why? And then he said, well, because when you have problems with your kidneys, it's so painful that it doesn't matter how much painkiller they give you, you still scream. So all the kidney patients, they put them all in one wing of the hospital so they can all scream together and they don't disturb the other patients like this. So it's excruciating actually. Chidahari, our godbrother here in Sydney, he's had several kidney stones. I remember one time in Melbourne, I got called to the temple late at night. Chidahari's rolling on the floor in agony. He thought he was going to die. He had pains in his kidney. We took him off. They took out a kidney stone as big as a peanut. So it's very, very painful. I mean, you're really... And yet, somehow or another, Prabhupada was, touring around preaching with this diseased kidney and this condition of uremia. He would just go on. It didn't stop him at all. Or practically at all. Anyway, so when we arrived back in Bombay in mid-August, then... Prabhupada again had this condition from Tehran because of the high altitude, caused some problems. So when we got back to Bombay, then Prabhupada curtailed his morning walk. In Bombay, he used to like to walk down Juhu Beach. Our temple there is right in Juhu, which is a very kind of trendy area, very wealthy area, and there's a beautiful beach there you can go and walk down. Prabhupada used to like to walk every day. He would take an hour's exercise. And so on this particular day, August the 15th, he decided not to go because of this uremia condition. So there was another gentleman, his name was Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel was a real character. He was about 4'10", little guy, and very boisterous and loud. And when Prabhupada had first moved to Juhu Beach and started taking his walks up and down there, I think maybe in 73. This Dr. Patel and his friends, they also used to go and walk up and down the beach. So he had seen Prabhupada one day and decided to come over and introduce himself. And then from that, he became so attached to Srila Prabhupada's company that whenever Prabhupada was in Bombay, Dr. Patel would be there on the beach, and he would walk up and down with him and argue, and they'd have these philosophical debates, and he would be very loud and pushy, and he was a Mayavadi, and Prabhupada would always defeat him. And so after 2 or 3 years of getting smashed, eventually then Dr. Patel changed from being an impersonalist, a Mayavadi, into being a devotee. And he started reading all of Prabhupada's books. He knew Sanskrit, so he was quite a learned man. And he was quite a character anyway, so it was quite lively whenever he was there. It was mixed. It was a mixed bag for the devotees, because if Dr. Patel was there, nobody could get another word in. He would just hog the whole conversation. And sometimes, because of the way that he related to Srila Prabhupada, we as disciples didn't always appreciate that, because he was a bit pushy and argumentative. And Prabhupada never minded it. But, sometimes we used to feel that he was overstepping the mark sometimes. But anyway, Prabhupada's patience paid off. He became a devotee. And, of course, when he wasn't there, it was great, because then, we could ask all the questions that we wanted to ask, and it would be nice for us. Anyway, so on this one particular day, we'd arrived on the evening of the 13th. So on the morning of the 15th, Prabhupada decided not to go for his morning walk because of this problem. So Dr. Patel then came to Prabhupada's rooms, and he quickly inquired from Prabhupada about his health and whether he was taking any medicine. Prabhupada accepted his concern, but in his usual self-effacing manner, he shook his head and he quoted the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 1st chapter, 4th verse, saying that the real medicine is the chanting of the holy name. Nivrittatarsha upagiyamana. This chanting is properly done by a person who has fully satisfied his material desires, satiated, no more, Prabhupada saying. So bhavoshati, and it is the medicine for this bhava roga. Bhava, punabhava. So once you take your birth, then you have to die. So this is punabhava. So this is the bhava roga, that means the disease of material life. Roga means disease. So except Pashubna, these animal killers, nobody can be aloof from this chanting of the Hari Krishna mantra. It is bhavoshati, means the medicine for all your material problems. So Dr. Patel laughed. So shall we call that Pandit Ayurveda Acharya of India for you, if you don't believe in our medicine? Because Dr. Patel was an allopathic doctor. Prabhupada never used to like taking allopathic medicine. He said it's the medicine for the demons, because generally speaking it's got such heavy side effects. So he always, if he ever took medicine, usually it was Ayurvedic, herbal, or sometimes on an odd occasion he took some homeopathic medicine. So Dr. Patel knew that he didn't like allopathic medicine, but he was an allopathic doctor. So he's saying, so shall we have to call the biggest Ayurvedic doctor in India to get you to take some medicine or what? So Prabhupada laughed. He said, no. So Dr. Patel said, so what I mean to say is that this body, the Chatra, and the Chaitragya, the owner of the body, they are dependent on each other. If there's no body, no Chatra, then there'll be no Chaitragya to stay there. So you have to look after the Chaitra. Or how will the Chaitragya be happy and living there? So I think I'm not wrong. So he's saying, if you don't look after your body, how are you going to stay in it? So you have to take the medicine. So Prabhupada chuckled. He said, no, you're right. Krishna, the Chaitra is changeable, and the Chaitragya is permanent. So although Dr. Patel knew very well that Prabhupada's opinion on taking medicine, he still tried some friendly persuasion, saying that there was and this led to a short discussion about Indian medicine. Dr. Patel said that there was now a research plant in Calcutta that is extracting penicillin from cow dung. Prabhupada knew about it, and he added that Dr. Manmohan Ghosh, a pathologist of Jagadish Chandra Bose, conducted the original research proving the antiseptic properties of gobar, or cow dung. And Dr. Patel said that there were many medicinal properties in cow urine also. that Gomutra, sir. He said there are so many hormones coming, and a big sample of hormones which can be resynthesized for human hormones. So Prabhupada agreed, saying that if you drink it, carry urine, it's a good medicine for liver disease. Dr. Patel expressed his concern again for Prabhupada's own health. Taking permission to raise this question, he said, now then, Arjuna was so advised that he should fight. So in that case, I mean, we all consider that he was right to follow Krishna's advice, yeah? So then if a man is overtaken by disease, and if he fights that, then, so Prabhupada smiled at his persistence. No, I don't say that he shouldn't fight. It is my personal choice. Not that one should not take care of the body, or one should not eat medicine. I'm not saying that. But I like this. Let me do without medicine. That is my personal choice. What is medicine? Dr. Patel asked. Any herb is a medicine. Every food is a medicine. Whatever it may be, Prabhupada said, I don't decry medicine, but that is not, because that is not my business. No, I don't say you're decrying it, Dr. Patel said, but if you don't want to take advantage of the medicine. No, medicine, Prabhupada said objectively, just like a type of vairagya. Sometimes they do not eat. So that doesn't mean that eating is forbidden. It's just my personal. I'm trying to avoid it, that's all. Well, you've heard the name of W.C. Banerjee, Prabhupada's telling him. He was a big barrister, so this is some big barrister from the early part of last century. He was one of the 3 inaugurators of the Congress Party in India in the beginning. So he had a friend, a contemporary. He was a Brahmana. So he was daily taking his bath in the Ganges. And if he was diseased, then he would simply drink Ganges water. So then he became seriously sick. So this W.C. Banerjee, he was a big man. So he asked this man's permission, let me bring a doctor. Otherwise you'll die in this way. So then the man persisted, no, I will simply drink Ganges water. So there's that mood sometimes amongst the Brahmanas. I don't require anything. If I got Ganga gel, live or die, it doesn't matter, it's in Krishna's hands. So Prabhupada said, so it is not that medical science is in the defeated position. So that was Prabhupada's philosophy about medicine. If he could avoid it and just chant Hare Krishna, he was happy to do that. And I think also at Prabhupada's, because by the time I was traveling with him, he was 80 years old, materially speaking. And he knew that there's only a limited amount of things that you can do with an 80-year-old body to keep it going. There's just some diseases that you just have to live with. You have to just tolerate it, that's all. And that's what Prabhupada was doing. You have to just tolerate, the happiness and the distress. Do your duty as much as you can for Krishna, and be satisfied with that. So that was his idea. And then again, he was expressing the same idea later on. January the 25th, 1977, we had gone to Jagannath Puri. It was interesting actually, because we'd gone to Bhubaneswar. Prabhupada was going to inaugurate a temple there. We have that temple, it's very nice, big temple. And so Prabhupada had gone there to do the foundation stone ceremony, which was on Nityananda Prabhu's appearance day in early February. So we were there about 10 days. And previously, Prabhupada had said that he would not go to Jagannath Puri until the pujaris and the pandas at the Jagannath temple allowed his disciples into the temple. So, I think the last time he'd been in Puri was in 1958. So now this was 1977. Anyway, we were there in Bhubaneswar. And then when we saw the land that Govinda Maharaj had gotten there in Bhubaneswar to build his temple on, we were all kind of disappointed. Prabhupada wasn't, but we were. It was just some vacant, it looked like a desert at that time. It was on the outskirts of Bhubaneswar. Nothing was, there. It was just dirt, brown dirt, like the outback or something. And we were thinking, why are we building a temple here in Bhubaneswar? Why don't we build one in Jagannath Puri? That's, that's the place, that's the Dham. So anyway, there was some back and forth, and then Gagamuni Swami was there, and he had told Prabhupada, actually there's some different plots of land. We could go, we could build a temple, even if we can't get into the big temple. We could build our own temple then. So Prabhupada agreed that he would go there and check it out. So when we went there on the 25th, then we were supposed to just go and come back. But then in the afternoon, we were staying in this motel. This man came, he was a pujari from the Jagannath temple, but he was a friendly one. And he was having a book inauguration. He'd done some translation of somebody's Bhagavatam in Aryan language. So he was having a pandal the next day. And he asked Prabhupada if he would come with his disciples to his pandal and be the chief guest of honor. I'm sorry, Dwight, I didn't see you there. So then Prabhupada decided, all right, we'll stay. So he stayed overnight in Puri. And so we were having some discussion anyway. And this topic came up again about health. Prabhupada was telling us, he said, so long the body is there, there'll be so many troubles. And Krishna has advised that they will come and go. So don't care for them, that's all. Matra sparsha tukantya sitoshna sukadukada agamapayino nityas tamsatikshashva bharata. So, bodily, mental, by enemies, so many impediments they will come to us. So what can be done? We have to tolerate. This is the material world. We cannot expect that everything will be smooth, very happy. That is not possible. So Krishna is advising Arjuna what to speak of us. So what are we in comparison to Arjuna? He is his personal friend. He's talking with him. So he says, Tamstatikshashva. You have to simply tolerate. Krishna never said, oh, I have made some magic. You will have no failure. No. He said, Tamstatikshashva. You just try to tolerate things. That's all. And you never gave him some tablet. He started laughing. He said, so you have to do that. So as these modern gurus, they say, oh, I will give you some ash. There will be no trouble. So did Krishna do so? He said, no. You just tolerate. That's all. He could have said, I will give you some ash. You are an ass, so I'll give you some ash. Neither Arjuna also asked, oh, why are you making me fight? Give me some ash and I'll throw that. He was not such a fool that he was asking for some magic from Krishna to kill his enemies. So actually, he fought. And this is the Bhagavad Gita. So you have to face things as they are, and you have to depend on Krishna. So that is our duty. We must go on with our duty. Do not expect any ash or miracle or magic. So, again, of course, in those days, there was one big guru in South India, still there, who was famous for ashes. Throwing ash, creating ash. So we'd have a few exchanges, and Prabhupada was commenting on that idea of, you're an ass, so here's some ash. That's not Krishna's way. Krishna says you just tolerate. You're in the material world, no magic, no waving a magic wand. Do what you can do. That's the real business. Yeah.
So this cause of these sufferings and all, is it related with the sins which we have done in this birth, or is it?
The suffering that we have, yes. Ultimately, we have to accept responsibility for our own situation.
Does it have any relevance with the sins which we have done, powers which we have done during our life, or?
Is the suffering the result of the sins that we've done? Yes, everything. Happiness and distress. There's that web of karma. Karma. Whatever you do, there's a reaction, good or bad. And then because that reaction is there, you're obliged to take another birth. And then in that birth, then you'll get all those reactions from your previous activities. They must come to fruition at some point. Not necessarily in this lifetime, maybe in several lifetimes. So, as souls, we're traveling from one body to another, but we're not innocent or pure. We come into this body, but we come with a lot of baggage. I'll give you a ring. We come in with a lot of baggage, good and bad. Yeah? This is called, in one sense, destiny. Prabhupada said, you can't avoid destiny. Whatever happiness or distress you've got coming, you'll get that. That's all. So, given that, you should just simply spend your time improving your Krishna consciousness, because that's the only way that you can get out of that web of repeated, action and reaction. It can be finished, but only by spiritual means, not by material means. You make a material adjustment, you get another reaction. It's like a spider's web. The fly gets stuck on the web. He moves this way, he gets stuck there. He moves that way, he gets stuck there. Every way he moves, he's getting more and more entangled. So that's life in the material world. So if you want to get free of that, then you have to chant Hare Krishna. Bhavashri. This is the cure for the material disease. Anyway, let's go on here. Again, Prabhupada was commenting about doctors and his kind of mentality towards that. We were in Vrindavan in November of 1976, and at that time there had been this court case had just come up. It was the first big court case against the Hare Krishna movement in America. Some of our devotees in New York have been charged with kidnapping and brainwashing and extortion. So they were trying to prove that making people chant Hare Krishna so many hours a day, depriving them of a good diet, making them weak by making them vegetarians, not allowing them to sleep. These are all similar to Korean brainwashing techniques. And this is how we're recruiting all our members. So they were taking us to court. It was a big court case. It was a real challenge to our right to be devotees. So anyway, we were discussing this. Prabhupada had just gotten news about this court case about a week before. So this was on November the 3rd. We were there sitting in the evening time, just a few of us with Prabhupada in his room. So there was one gentleman, Bhagavatam. He's dead now, but he was a local man. He lived just around the corner from the temple in Vrindavan. And he was really the first local person in Vrindavan to step forward and give help to Srila Prabhupada. And he donated a lot of money, and he also was involved with the management of the temple. So Prabhupada liked him very much. We used to call him Bhagavatam. So he comes every evening, and he prepares Prabhupada's hot milk in his kitchen. Prabhupada always had a glass of hot milk in the evening about 9:30 or 9:45. He then brings it into Prabhupada in his darshan room and has a chat with him before he retires. Normally, Prabhupada doesn't like to eat with others around to distract his attention, but this evening, as he ate some potato pakoras and a little sabji that his cooks had prepared for him, he allowed myself and Hasaduta to join him and Bhagavaji in his room in some light conversation. His mood was jovial and accommodating, and as he enjoyed the simple fare, he glorified the simple lifestyle of Krishna consciousness, wondering how anyone could possibly find any fault with it. Some papers have put a critical tone in their reports, how the devotees spend everything on God and nothing on themselves. So that was another criticism. Oh, we give everything to God. What about us? They thought that was a horrible thing. So Prabhupada's view was naturally very different. So, is this not a credit? We spend for God. We are the servants of God. We want to see God gorgeously situated. And for us, we have no comforts. We don't care for any comfort. We simply spend the minimum just to keep the body and soul together, that's all. This is our principle. We don't spend a farthing for our sense gratification. So he thought that this was actually a strong point in our favour in the court case. So this should be noted down. If some case is there, then this should be presented, that we don't go to the restaurant, we don't go to the cinema, we don't spend lavishly for dressing and for anything else. Looking around at us, sitting on the floor in his almost vacant room, because he had a big room where there was just one table and a seat for Prabhupada, and then the rest was just thin cotton mattresses, that's it, that was the whole furnishings. So Prabhupada laughed. So, neither for furniture either. If you sit down on a pad of cotton pad, is that faulty? We sit down, we don't use any chair, no couches, unnecessarily carpets. So what is the fault there? And what is the expenditure? We have no expenditure for our personal self. And still, oh, you were faulty. So what can be done? We don't purchase any cosmetics, either just this clay tilak, that is sufficient. We don't apply this pomade or cosmetic or ointments, either for our girls or for ourselves. So we don't do that. We live very simply. After 15 days, we shave the head. There's no use of cutting or decorating. So you note these things down. So he was telling us to do it, write it all down and send it. This is our defense in the court. He said, and then he said, and we have no doctor's bill even. At least I save on the doctor's bill. He said, I am always sick, but I never go to the doctor. You just give me a little neem, give me a little this, little that. He said, so then what less expenditure can we make? As far as possible, we do not even go to the doctor. So again, that was Prabhupada's mood. He didn't like going to doctors. He didn't like spending money on medicines. Alright, just a little neem. Sometimes if Prabhupada was sick, he would adjust his diet. He would put some spices, or he would use some, natural things like neem leaves and things like this, and try to adjust with it that way. But apart from that, he wasn't really making a lot of effort. So again, another comment. 2 days later, I was giving Prabhupada his massage. Although I will say this, Prabhupada, although he wasn't really keen on medicines, but he was never neglectful of maintaining himself. If you look at his schedule, an hour's morning walk, an hour and a half massage at noon, another hour's massage in the night time, so that's 3.5 hours a day, just exercising and maintaining. He said, I take my exercise sitting down. That means, we were there massaging him, so that was his exercise, sitting down. But 3.5 hours minimum every day, that was Prabhupada's schedule, always. Wherever he was traveling, he would always keep that, just to maintain the body. So it's not that he was being neglectful, and he wasn't advising that. But he had a philosophy about, maintaining his own body and use of medicine and stuff like this. So anyway, this 2 days later, Prabhupada was there. I was giving him his massage. And a member of parliament from Hyderabad came to see him. So we'd been down there in August. Prabhupada opened the Hyderabad temple. And it was very nice. We got a very good reception. And then afterwards, Prabhupada was invited to speak to the entire state government, cabinet, all the cabinet members in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So we went to the house of the Minister for Endowments. Minister of Endowments, he was in charge of about 40,000 temples in Andhra Pradesh. What they did was they actually nationalized all the temples in Andhra Pradesh, because there's one temple there, Balaji, Tirupati temple, and they get lakhs and lakhs and lakhs of rupees every day being given in the hundi. And there were complaints that the temple trustees are not using this money properly. It's the richest temple in India. So the government nationalized the temple so that they could misuse the money. Then they started giving out loans for industrial development and things like, all from Balaji's money. Anyway, that's another story. But the man who was in charge of that, Minister for Endowments, he was actually a Hari Sauri something or other. He was a very nice man. Didn't have a clue what he was doing. And he was asking Prabhupada for advice. So he invited Prabhupada to speak to the whole state cabinet of Andhra Pradesh. It's like if, Amarama or somebody was invited to go and speak in the New South Wales State Parliament there. What's his name now? Lemming, whatever his name is. This man is in charge now. Yeah, he would speak to the whole cabinet. It was a big thing. It was very nice. So anyway, this man was there. He was a member of Parliament. So now he came to Vrindavan and he saw Prabhupada there. And he was telling Prabhupada how the government had just given him a grant of 25 lakhs of rupees, which were 1 lakh is 100,000. So in those days, a rupee was about 10 rupees was about $1. So that was like $250,000 that he'd just gotten as a grant, which is a lot of money in those days, to open a yoga club, which would specialize in reviving ancient medicines for bodily health. Sounds good. Prabhupada patiently heard him, and then he told him candidly, ancient or new, it doesn't matter as long as it does the job. By yoga, he said, you can develop the ability to walk on water, but why bother if you can pay a few paisa and cross by the boat? He said, concentration on bodily health is simply a waste of time. Even the animals know how to look after their bodies. He gave the example of the mongoose, which when fighting with a snake will run off into the jungle if it gets bitten. There it finds a certain herb that it eats, which counteracts the venom, and then again it comes back to the fight. So he said, even animals know how to take care of the body. Therefore, we should take care of the soul within the body first. So it sounded very laudable, yoga club and ancient medicines. But without the focus on the soul, what's the use of it? Your body's going to die anyway. So it's all right if it supports somebody if they're doing spiritual endeavor. That's another thing. But if you just do medicine or exercise just for the sake of the body and nothing else, then it's a waste of time. So anyway, then not being very keen on those kinds of medicines, Prabhupada did say that there is one particular medicine which we should all take. So this was on January the 5th, 1976. We were in Nellore in South India. So we were out on a morning walk, and we came past a colony of what they call Dalits now, or Bangis, untouchables. So Mr. Reddy, who was, I think he was the head of the local Lions Club or something, he was coming out on the walk. So he mentioned that the government was distributing land to the poor people. So he asked whether ISKCON was engaged in any kind of social welfare work, because many people have asked him, what does our society do to benefit other people? Prabhupada replied by asking him, what does he consider to be the best social welfare? When Mr. Reddy said that serving the poor and the natives, Prabhupada told him, everybody is poor. Who is rich? You first of all find out who is rich. Prabhupada went on to explain how everybody is poor because every one of us must suffer from old age, disease, and death. Adjustment of a person's material condition can be done by anyone, but he said ISKCON was established for a different purpose. These things, they're being done by so many other people, so we're doing something which is ultimate. The hospital is giving some medicine when there is some disease, but that does not mean that there will be no disease. Can they guarantee that, I will give you this medicine, you'll get no more disease? No, but we are giving that medicine, that no more disease. That is the best social work. As soon as you give up this body, chakvadayam punarjanma nayati, then you'll have no more birth. And if you have no more birth, there'll be no more death. And if you have no more birth, so this is our prescription. Chakvadayam punarjanma nayati mamati. Not that he is finished, but he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is our program. So Prabhupada was giving the ultimate medicine. Finish the process of birth and death. That's the real cure. And that's the cure for the soul, of course. Okay, so that's a little bit of a look at Prabhupada's, philosophy on medicine, maintaining the body, maintaining your health. Main thing is, concentrate on your soul. That's the first thing. Other things can be supported, but this is the main thing for us. So now we'll have a look at, Prabhupada's own personal problems that he had with his own health. Of course, I mentioned that as soon as he set sail from India, he had a heart attack when he came out to the West to preach. But even before that, sometimes Prabhupada would talk about his past, activities in India. and he would mention, sometimes difficulties that he had. So on September the 5th in 1976, we were in Vrindavan, and there'd been some managerial meeting, and at this time, Prabhupada was having a lot of problems with high blood pressure, and even one day he didn't give the Bhagavatam class because he had such high blood pressure he couldn't speak practically. So that was a bit of a problem. Anyway, so Vrindavan temple was new. It had only been opened about a year or so, and the devotees were not very expert, and every time Prabhupada came to Vrindavan, he would see so many problems going on there, and he would spend, 1, 2, 3 weeks getting into it with the managers, going into every single detail about, just right from the purchasing of the flowers to the prasadam that was being served, to the cleanliness, so many different things. And, he would continually be meeting with them practically every day. So this was after, another managerial meeting. So this was really getting too much for Srila Prabhupada. So he stopped the meeting, he rubbed his head, and he complained. He said, "Now I am getting brain fag." So I was puzzled. I had never heard that term before, and I asked him, what's that, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada repeated, brain fag. And then he told us how in one time in Delhi in the 1950s, he was walking all over from one office to another, trying to distribute his Back to Godhead newspaper. So the entire production of the paper, writing it, editing it, proofreading, purchase of the paper, overseeing the printing, everything, and all the distribution, he said, was being done by himself alone, with no assistance from anyone. So he said that he was working very hard. So once, while out in the hot sun, he developed brain fag, and he said, I began to reel like a drunkard. But he said, I have no money even to stop a taxi. But then, just at that moment, by Krishna's arrangement, a friend of his happened to pass by in a motor car and saw him staggering on the road and stopped, took him into his car, took him home, and then gave him some medicine, and then that fixed him up. So that was an occasion when he did take medicine. But the point there is that, Prabhupada suffered many difficulties in the course of his preaching. It wasn't just, when he got older. This was in the 1950s. And, just going out one place to another, being in the hot sun, he just, I guess, his brains just overheated. And he got what he called brain fag. So that made him practically unconscious. Also, when we were there in Vrindavan, in October of 76, I had a discussion with him. We were talking about Prabhupada's original preaching organization, the League of Devotees. When he left home, he had gone off to Jhansi to preach there. And he had gotten this big building, renting. And he had started what he called the League of Devotees. Then somehow or another it didn't work. And then he moved to Mathura, and then he came to Vrindavan. Then he was living in Radha Damodar, and then eventually came to the West. So anyway, 1976, we really still didn't know very much in detail about Prabhupada's past activities. We heard bits and pieces here and there. There's always stories going around, but we had no Prabhupada Lilamrita. There was no official biography of Srila Prabhupada. There was a very brief one, but we really didn't know a lot of detail. So whenever Prabhupada would start speaking, about his past, we would be very eager to find out more and more about it and ask a lot of questions like this. So I was asking Prabhupada about this League of Devotees. Somehow or another the topic had come up. I had one of the devotees that was traveling with us, he had one of Prabhupada's original Bhagavatams. He had printed 3 volumes of the first canto before he went to the West. So this boy Akshaya was reading this old Bhagavatam, original Bhagavatam. And I saw in the front that it was published by the League of Devotees. So I was trying to think, who was the League of Devotees? Was it Prabhupada and his godbrothers, or did he have some helpers, or what? So I was curious, and I was asking him what the League of Devotees actually was. So I said, was that some godbrothers that you had joined up with, or was that you? He said, so no, after leaving Jhansi, so I went to this god brother, Keshava Maharaj. He was actually, that was it, there was a picture of Prabhupada on his sannyas day. Yeah, so there's a picture of Keshava Maharaj, he gave him sannyas, and then there was Prabhupada and another old man. And the two of them had taken sannyas together from Keshava Maharaj. So Prabhupada was looking at that picture and I was asking him questions about it. So he said, I went to live with this god brother, Keshava Maharaj. I lived there for a few months, and then I went to another god brother in Imli town. Then I left there. So then I was living alone in Delhi, and then I took one house in Kasigat. So that place in Kasigat is a small temple, Bamsi Gopal temple. Prabhupada had a room on the roof there for several years. And then from there, he said, then these Radha Damodar men, they came and told me that, oh, you can live here. We've got 2 rooms. We won't charge you. We give you the place. So he said, then I came to the Radha Damodar, and from the Radha Damodar temple, then I went to the USA. Well, I was just wondering what exactly the League of Devotees was. I was kind of trying to find out exactly. So Prabhupada started smiling. He said, oh, the League, that was, well, I was just trying to collect some devotees. Some of them, they were medical students. So they came and they used to live with me. This was in Jhansi. But still, he said, I lived there for 2 years, from 54 to 56. So I had some surgical operation, on my testicles. And these medical students, they were taking care of me. So Prabhupada actually had an operation in the mid-50s, which I never knew about until he told me about it at this point there, some kind of serious operation. And then these boys that, were coming, they were looking after him, so they were all medical. So he had one disciple that he made in Jhansi. His name was Prabhakar Acharya, that was his regular name. And he was initiated as Hari Das. So he became Prabhupada's first disciple. And then Prabhupada didn't initiate anybody else until he came to the West, when he ended up in New York there. So he said, this Prabhakar Acharya. So they were not full-time, but they were students and they were living with me. So that was, the League of Devotees. It was just Prabhupada. He was doing everything himself. He was laughing. I made that, organization, but he said it was just me. Anyway, so a couple of things there. Prabhupada's health problems. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Prabhupada had that heart attack on the boat. So we had a bit of a conversation about that when we were in Jagannath Puri in January of 77. Gargamuni was there. The Gargamuni Swami, of course, was one of the first devotees to join in New York in the early days. And Prabhupada had that heart attack on the boat going over in 65. Then he had a massive heart attack in New York in 1967, and they had to take him to the hospital. He actually collapsed, and he was paralyzed down one side, so he had some kind of a stroke, and the devotees had to take him. So now Gargamuni in 77, this is 10 years later, he's reminiscing with Prabhupada in Jagannath Puri about that whole episode and having this heart attack. So Prabhupada was saying, he was commenting, philosophical. He said, so this word is used, apratiyata. Pratiyata means checking. So when your devotional service will make progress in spite of the checking, then that is pure devotional. Apratiyata, without no obstacle. It goes on despite the obstacles. So ahaituki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. So that is pure devotion. I was attacked by that heart attack thrice, while on the ship twice. So Prabhupada saying this was his obstacle. Yeah. Twice he had heart attacks on the boat going over, and then the third one in New York. So Gargamuni was saying, oh, on the ship you had it twice? Prabhupada said, yes, consecutively, 2 days attack. Actually, I would have died on the ship before reaching your country. I could not understand that it was a heart attack. The pain was so severe that I thought, I am now dying. And that was done on 2 nights. And I was very much afraid whether on the 3rd night, that if this night also, again, some pain comes like that, then I will die. But the third night did not came, so it was suspended, and it came in New York. So that was Prabhupada's perspective. You know, he should have died on the boat. It was suspended, because he told us also in Los Angeles what happened there. After the first 2 nights, he was afraid that it was going to happen again the next night and he would die. But then that third night, instead of having a heart attack, he had a dream. And he saw Krishna in all of his many forms. And he was rowing the boat. And Prabhupada could understand that now Krishna has taken charge of the ship. And then from then, he didn't have any problems until 1967. So now Prabhupada's saying that it was postponed from that, you know, journey on the ocean. Now it came again in 67. So it came in New York. And as you know, this left side was paralyzed. Gargamuni said, yes, that left side, we had to massage you constantly. Prabhupada said, yes, and they were arranging for some operation. So I told Kirtan and Andy, you just give me massage. Gargamuni said, yes, I can remember. I wheeled you down for the test. And Prabhupada said, yes, the heart was also very painful still. Gargamuni, they wanted to take some blood, and I had to stop them. Prabhupada said, yes, they were examining my brain. Then I thought, I must go away. I told the doctor, no, I'm all right, I can go. Gargamuni said, yes, they wanted to do so many tests. They wanted to take something from the spine also. And then Satsvarup was there also in this meeting. And of course, he was there in New York as well in the early days. And he was there in the hospital with Prabhupada. And he said, well, they did that. They gave you that spinal needle. So then Prabhupada said, never call a doctor. You never take me to the hospital. Let me die peacefully if I am in trouble. That was something I heard Prabhupada repeat many times. Never take me to the hospital. Never bring me to the doctors. Just let me die in peace. That's all. And then Gargamuni